So this is a project I've wanted to do for a while now. I've got this old Techmarine Mini, and I love the sculpt, but my version has a lot of problems. First of which is this chainsword. I decided it would be good to have 2 melee weapons when I was younger. That was a mistake. We'll be giving him his proper arm. Now then, let's get started. Now the first step in this process is going to be stripping the Mini. I got this tub here, but I've never stripped a Mini before. I don't know that much about it. So I reached out to eBay Miniature Rescue. Casey's probably stripped more miniatures than I've ever painted. He is the guy to go to for rescues.
What's up, hobby friends? Casey here from eBay Miniature Rescues. Just wanted to take a second and talk a little bit about stripping models in a bit of a larger volume. Now, personally, I think you could pretty much do this 2 ways. You can get a very large pickle jar with the appropriate solution to strip your models and just throw them in there and leave them. That'll totally work. But a faster and more efficient way, and my recommended way, is getting an ultrasonic jewelry cleaner to strip your models. Whether you're doing a single model or a large batch, this is going to get that done in a very quick amount of time, and you can use things like a heavy-duty degreaser and not some of the more expensive and harsh chemicals to strip that paint off. Now, obviously, there are lots of great chemicals that work to strip paint, and they're made for that, and that's fine. If you want to go down that route, that makes a lot of sense. But for my money, I like to use an ultrasonic cleaner with a degreaser called LA's Totally Awesome. You can find that on Amazon. You can also find it in some of the kind of dollar stores, at least in the US, and it's pretty good stuff and it works really well to strip models. So hopefully that helps, and let's finish out this video.
And there you have it. I went to the dollar store, picked up some LA's Totally Awesome. Canadian dollar stores carry it too, turns out. I'll give this guy a bit of a bath and check back on him in a couple of hours. Alright, let's see where we are here. Oh yeah, beautifully gnarly shade of red. Now I don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, and I'm not sure it would really be worth buying one just to do one Mini. They can get a little expensive. The toothbrush did give me an idea though. Let's grab a cheap electric one from the pharmacy and see how well that works. And you can see here, scrubbing away at it with the electric toothbrush. This doesn't actually take very long to get off the excess paint. A few seconds with the electric toothbrush, and you can see that one's mostly clean. It did take a little bit of scrubbing for some of the pieces, especially the ones with deeper crevices, and I wasn't able to clear quite all of that heinous hardware store primer that I'd originally used on this thing, so I grabbed the hobby knife and used that to flake off a few of the more stubborn patches. This step is probably optional, but I really wanted to have this thing as clean as possible for when I reprimed it. While I was at it, got rid of some of that epoxy that I'd used to try and stick these together. There we go, all cleaned up. I pulled the Techmarine slot base off. I'm going to give him a slightly larger one, and that reveals that, hey, this is a sculpt from 2004. That would be when I originally bought this guy. Not the oldest sculpt in the world or anything, but kind of cool. Older sculpts are a lot of fun. Even if it does mean that this one's in pewter and pinning it's a nightmare. The biggest problem with pewter is that it's, well, even if it is a soft metal, it's still kind of challenging to drill. You need to drill out one hole on each side, find a paper clip that'll fit, and then go for the baking soda. Baking soda helps the superglue polymerize and bond strong and fast. Now, I have seen some reports that this does release toxic fumes, but I've seen others that say it's basically just CO2 and water vapor, so, you know, your mileage may vary. And then rinse and repeat for all 8 pieces. Use some cheap dollar store pliers to cut the pins, and there we go, stuck together, instant, strong bond. Since I was giving him a slightly larger 32mm base, I also needed to pin him to that, which meant cutting off the slotted tab and drilling 2 holes so he'd be extra stable once he was glued to his base. Now, time to break out the airbrush. So I do own an airbrush, but I'm still kinda new to it, and this is my first go at painting a Mini this size with it. I've painted larger miniatures, but nothing quite human size like this guy, and I've over-thinned my red paint, as you can see here, in an effort to get it to force through a clog in the nozzle. Eventually, though, I do get that sorted out, and now you can see that this flat red is going on much more smoothly. Unfortunately, the overthinned carmine did lead to a lot of gray showing through in the shadows, but that kind of worked out, and I liked the effect in the end anyways, so I didn't try to redo it. The airbrush is a really finicky tool, and I'm not sure I'd use it for everything, but it does give you really nice smooth blends on armor like this. That's kind of the only thing I'm using it for, though. Once the armor's done, it's back to basic brushwork for everything else, including the edge highlights. I wanted to edge highlight a lot of these armor panels. There's a lot of nice sharp edges on there that would benefit from a quick highlight. These look starker when they're wet, but once they're dry, you can't see them. This is going to be the same gold recipe that I used for the other Space Marine that I painted recently, by the way. These are going to be from the same chapter, my homebrew chapter here, and I wanted the gold to match. I also wanted the green to match. Starting this up with the heavy black green, but then I'm going to move into a little bit of wet blending. I couldn't do these with the airbrush, so I had to resort to another method of blending them together. Unfortunately, wet blending works pretty well with that dark green as a base. It's a bit more of a liquidy paint. It doesn't have great coverage, which is why I have to start with the heavy black green, but it does mean wet blending is a little bit easier. With that out of the way, there was just one more color to base coat, and it's kind of a big one. There are a lot of metallic pieces on this guy, and I had to be very careful not to get any of this metallic paint onto the nice airbrushed blends that I did earlier. That is one of the bigger problems with airbrushing. Once you've damaged it, it's really hard to touch it back up. I figured I'd come back in with the intermediate green, a little bit of a lighter green mixed in, and do some final edge highlights for the shoulder pad as well, just to kind of help it match up with the airbrushed details. Old Gold, I love this paint. It's maybe not the greatest paint in the world, but I really love the effect it gives. It does look like old weathered gold. I think there's a little bit of green in there. It's a super nice paint. Coverage leaves a little bit to be desired, of course, which is why I do the brown first. As a side note, my friend Fiverr has pointed out that my chapter logo looks like a bonbon. This was accidental. I was trying to do a stylized bird, and now I can't unsee it, so thank you very much for that. I'm not changing it, though. The axe that I'm painting here was one of the points of contention for me when I did this mini originally. I wanted it to have kind of a bluish glow as a power weapon, but originally my method of doing that didn't work out so well, so I'm going to give it a little bit of a better go here now that I've learned a few things. Add some electric blue around the power nodules and inside those cogs to give it a bit of a glow, and hopefully this will come out looking really nice once the cogs have been painted in. Glacier Blue is a nice sort of blue off-white that I use to thin down this blue a little bit, make it nice and bright for those final highlights. And now it's time for inks. All of the gold gets sepia, as is proper and good, and all of the base actually got sepia as well, because I want these to be grungy industrial bases. Also used it as oil for those little piston-y things on the backpack. This is the same gold recipe that I used before, so I'm going to gloss over it a little bit. But I do want to reiterate that I do not like highlighting gold with silver. I'm okay with highlighting it with a really bright gold, and I'm okay with mixing a little bit of silver into the polished gold for a final highlight, though I don't do that here, but I really don't like the way that pure silver washes gold out, so I don't do it. And once again, another big step, black ink for all of the metallics. This adds a lot of depth, but the black ink does tend to kind of de-shine the metallics a little bit, so more highlights later are needed. Also took the opportunity to try some panel lining. This guy's got a lot of panels, and that simple step really helps define those details. Alright, on to the importance of asymmetry. I'm only doing this one claw yellow. Having one detail like this, a different color on the other side, will unbalance the model slightly. It'll draw your eye to that. But sometimes that can be a good thing. Sometimes you want to draw your attention to the big grabby claw on the backpack. That claw is also the transition point to all of the many fine details on this miniature. Cables I was originally going to do just one layer, but they looked really flat, so I added a simple highlight, makes them pop a lot more. Hazard stripes are one of my favorite effects, and I'm using heavy charcoal, which is a sort of like off black for them here, just so that it's not pure black over that yellow. It'll look black to your eye, but unlike pure black, it won't look as flat. The hazard stripes also allowed me to do a little bit of fixing on this manufacturing defect on this cable on the gun arm. Those in place, it's a lot harder to see the missing section. I've also used this color to base all of the cogs on this guy. He's got a lot of cogs on him, and if you remember the way that I'd painted the original, I want to do that same kind of effect. But this time, I'm not going to use pure black and pure white because I have other colors and I'm a better painter now. Back when I originally painted this guy, I didn't have any other colors, so black and white was the only way to go. But I feel like doing it this way is a lot more visually attractive in the end, and it allows me to save a step and use deck tan on these parchments as well. Deck tan is another fantastic color, sort of an off-white, and it'll work well for the cogs. And once I've mixed in a little bit of actual white to use as a highlight for this, it comes out looking quite visually distinctive from the parchment that it's placed right next to, which is quite fortuitous. Man, there sure are a lot of little cogs on this guy. It would really suck if I had missed one. Good thing that didn't happen. Okay, so it did, but I caught it before it was finished, so it's fine. It's all fine. That's what I tell myself. Oh, and in case you're wondering, using pale sand as the highlight on the parchment gives it a nice warmer look that contrasts with those cogs. Alrighty, getting down to the last few little things here. Broke out the stippling brush to do the base. Did some highlights with silver on all the metallics, painted all the little rivets. So many rivets. So many. And broke out the Micron pen for one last little round of detailing on the parchment. Having a Micron pen, as I've said before, makes things like this so much easier to do than if you were using a brush, and it looks great in the end and it won't fade. At this point, these things are basically a Destro recommended product. Getting some more use out of the stippling brush to do a little bit of engine soot on the flamethrower attachment that he's got in the arm here. Oh, and I wasn't quite happy with the base silver, so I did add a little bit more detailing to that. And then heat scoring on the plasma cutter. This is a really fun effect. I've used a bunch of different inks here. You can do this with kind of any thin inks. You need a brown, a red, a purple, and a blue for the full effect, but you could probably get away by mixing a few of those together if you don't have all four. It's one of the only things I use the purple ink for, to be honest, but I do think it's really worth it. It looks so good. Such a simple effect, too. Go ahead, grab a weapon it's appropriate for and try it. End of the day, if you don't like it, well, this project has proven you can always strip a mini down and repaint it, and in this case, I think it came out looking a lot better. This is way closer to the vision I had when I originally painted this mini, and it shows. Classic sculpts like this guy still have a lot of life left in them, and you can take something that isn't great and turn it into something really cool. I certainly hope I've inspired some of you to try. For now, though, that's it for me. I've been Destro, you've been great, and I'll see you next time.